could be like the John Madden of on-camera violence.
Hey gang, I don't know what ammunition costs where you guys are at, but where I'm at, it's ridiculously expensive. I was talking to Samuel Millibrook, who runs our active self-protection instructor development course the other day, and he was telling us that some of the rounds folks are bringing to class are $1 to $2 per round. You multiply that times the whole class, and it's nuts how expensive it can get. There's never been a better time to pick up a Mantis firearms training system. Mantis has been a huge, long-time supporter of active self-protection. We're so grateful for their support and their product. You're going to get immediate, measurable, visual feedback, and that can take so much time off of your dry and live fire training. Please visit them at mantisx.com and let them know you heard about them on the ASP podcast. Hello and welcome to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Williver. With us today, John Correia, founder, president, owner?
Correct.
Of Active Self-Protection. John, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Man, I am so excited to launch the Active Self-Protection podcast and so excited for you, Mike, to be the one leading the way.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm just had the first few times I was on camera on the main channel, and I am loving the comment section, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, I'm a cardboard cutout, apparently. That's neither here nor there. John, my first question is this. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, man, I think it depends on what time you're asking. So from my youngest time as a kid, what I can remember, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And in fact, I carried that all the way through to my first stint in college. I went to the University of California at Davis as the first college that I ever went to. And the reason that I went to UC Davis is because I wanted to be a veterinarian. But that dream died on the altar of I had no money. And so, that was what I wanted to be when I grew up, was a veterinarian. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up now.
Yeah, it's weird. As you know, I just retired, so I'm on this weird spot right now. I feel like I don't have a job because I'm doing this, and this is just so much fun that it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, jobs are for suckers.
Absolutely. Talk to me about Jesus. When did you meet him?
Well, so I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Anybody who's watched the channel knows that I talk about Jesus when we talk about spiritual fitness. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up in a very agnostic at best home. We just worshiped Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers. Worshipped at the church of Al, Frank, and Dan, for those of you who are 1990s Monday Night Football fans. I got picked up for an officer commissioning program when I was in the Navy in 97. And we moved to Oregon, and my wife basically dragged me to church. When we got there, my oldest child was like a baby, like 6 weeks old when we moved out there. And then this old dude invited my wife to church, and she dragged me because she didn't want people to think she was a single mom. And but they fed me, man. Like, they had potluck after church. And if you want to get to a sailor's heart,
feed them and they will come.
Feed them and they will come. And so they fed me potluck like 4 weeks in a row, some stuff this church was doing. And by the time they quit feeding me, I'd made some friends. And then we sat there and let my wife drag me to church for, about 6 months at that point.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you, is the food,
yeah.
You know? And then Easter Sunday in 98, the pastor had a very powerful message about the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus and why that's important. And so that got me started reading scripture a little bit, reading the Bible, getting together with their outreach pastor. And that was a process of months and months of a lot of questions and a lot of reading and thinking and reading widely. And then July 26, 98, I was sitting in the back row at church, and the pastor's wife was leading worship, and she said, hey, listen, I grew up around Jesus my whole life, but it was when I really realized he loved me with my sins right where I was that I gave my heart to him. And God rang me like a bell with that, like hit me over the head with it. And picked me up, shook me real hard. And I was like, okay, that's where we are right now. This isn't a Boy Scout club. This isn't if John will make himself better, that, you'll approve of me. No, you love me right here in the big steaming pile of crap that is some parts of my life. All right, I'm in. And so from there, if he's not Lord of all, he ain't Lord at all. So he's been the driving force for life from there.
You actually, in a previous life, you've done 2 jobs involved with your faith. One is a college professor. Actually, 3, excuse me. College professor, author, and pastor.
Oh, gosh, I guess I wouldn't consider the job of author to be a job. But you're right. Yeah, I've written 2 books. If you go on Amazon, you can find them both. The first one's super geeky. It's called The Faith That Saves. It's a discussion of the Greek term pistis and the verb pistuo. If you don't have 2 years of Greek and a year of Hebrew, I would pass on that book. Even if you do have 2 years of Greek and a year of Hebrew, you probably want to pass on that book.
Unless you're in seminary?
It is, exactly. It's for the 9 people in seminary who are doing this incredibly intensive word study. And then I wrote a book called Refreshing Grace, which is kind of meant for Sunday schools, Bible colleges, for talking about a very particular aspect of salvation theory. So, I've written a couple books, taught at the collegiate level and at the seminary level, did that. I taught at Arizona Christian University for 9 years, taught Bible theology, church leadership, preaching, anything they wanted me to there. And then also taught at the seminary level for 5 years, taught here we go, geeky word, hermeneutics. I taught the art and science of Bible interpretation, and I also taught some pastoral skills stuff and some theology there as well. So, pastored a church for 14 and a half years. And
here in Phoenix?
Yes, here in Phoenix. 2 places. I pastored Mountain View Community Church in the city of Maricopa. Now, for anybody who knows Maricopa, it's a postage stamp. Used to be a real postage stamp. It's a little bigger now.
Yeah, it's grown up.
And even now bigger. The place with the church where I pastored is out past town and like out in the country in the middle of nowhere. And then I pastored a church in Glendale that has since closed for about 10 and a half years. So, 14 years of pastoral experience. I didn't leave the faith when I quit my job. I just quit the job. I love shepherding souls, but I hate running a nonprofit. So I ain't going to do that no more.
Right. You were, I believe when I met you, you were in the Navy. You'd been injured in a car accident, right?
Yeah, that's the case. I served in Uncle Sam's Canoe Club for about 7.5 years, almost 8 years.
What'd you do?
I made hot water the hard way. And so I was a nuclear reactor operator. It sounds really impressive when you say it that way. I operated nuclear reactors in the United States Navy, the most powerful Navy in the history of humanity.
Having worked for the federal government, I know better.
Yeah. I made hot water the hard way in Uncle Sam's Canoe Club. Basically, if you've ever watched an episode of The Simpsons, you know, what Homer Simpson does, I did, which was sit and watch a panel and hope nothing goes wrong.
And eat donuts.
I mean, that's what nukes do. So, I was on the USS John C. Stennis. But you're right. So I had a weird Navy career. I got picked up for a commissioning program when I was still in nuclear power school. Actually, I got the acceptance letter when I was in nuclear power prototype. Still in training. Very competitive program. They only choose 25 applicants a year. And the year that I got picked up, 1997, was an especially hard year. But I did really well in my interviews and really well on my testing. And so they picked me up and sent me to college for 3 years, which is pretty awesome. I mean, you know, I got a billet, an active duty billet going to college. And at the end of that billet was scheduled to be commissioned as a naval officer and then go back through the nuclear power pipeline as an officer and then go to a submarine. But about 16 weeks before my commissioning, I was supposed to be commissioned at the end of May of 2000. And then January 16th, 2000, I happened to be out that night helping a friend who was really is just having some personal problems, you know, and he needed somebody to sit and have coffee with him. Mm-hmm. So we sat out at a coffee shop until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I had an hour and 20-minute drive home, which meant about 20 or 30 minutes after 2 a.m. I was rolling for home, and the bars in Corvallis, Oregon.
Never a good time to be on the road.
Yeah, all the amateur drunks come out at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And so sure enough, I was doing 45 down a really deserted road outside of Corvallis, Oregon, towards my apartment complex, and he was doing 85 and decided he didn't want to pay any attention to what was going on the road. He was too drunk to pay attention to anything on the road.
Or go around you.
Yeah, well, so I saw him right at the last second. It's this big, long, deserted stretch of road, went around kind of a big bend, and I looked up in my rearview mirror, and he was 6 feet off my bumper. Hit me hard, probably about 45 mile an hour difference in speed, spun me off into the ditch.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and then he took off. So he kept going, but about 3/4 of a mile down the road, because the road kind of chicaned, and he did not chicane really well, and so he launched his car over 400 feet of muddy grass and landed on the hood.
Now, as a career law enforcement officer, I have a hunch he may have been impaired.
Yeah, he was maybe a little impaired. He actually, so the funny part was then, you know, I had one of those brick cell phones. This is in 2000, right? So this is before
Nokia or something?
Yeah, it was like a big Nokia, right? And it whacked me in the head as it was, you know, my car's spinning around all these places.
That could have killed you all by itself.
Dude, I was like, ow! And so then, you know, called 911, and they sent an officer. The first officer goes barreling by me, and I was like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, help.
Okay. Second officer comes by, happened to be a friend of mine, which was really cool. And okay, man, let's see if we can get this car out of the ditch. We did. And then he's like, hey, follow me over. The guy turned his car over so we can go over there. And then that way there's more people around.
Were you in pain right away?
I really wasn't.
Yeah, I know that feeling as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I locked up real hard on the steering wheel and actually I probably hurt myself more than anything else. And so I did, what did they say? I did 2 full rotations in the ditch and a 3/4 rotation. So 2 3/4 spins.
And the East German judge gave you a 9.5?
Yeah, 9.5 from the East Germans, but that was, of course, thrown out in the judging. So, yeah, we got up there. The kid who hit me said, he was 21, but he said, I hit him. He said, rest that guy hit me. I was like, I hit him with my rear bumper.
Yeah.
Going down the road. Yeah.
You backed into him at a high rate of speed?
Yeah. So he had 2 passengers in his car. They ended up in all the police documents, 2.5 hours after he hit me, they finally did a breathalyzer on him and he blew a .24. 2.5 hours after he hit me.
Yeah, I won't nerd out with how the breathalyzer works, but there's a whole band. Like, it's not linear. Your blood alcohol changes, but that's
drunk.
I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, well, and especially given the fact that he had a DUI 5 months previously, that he was actually on a diversion for, and so
he diverted right into your tailgate.
Diverted right into the rear of my car. Yep. So, and in fact, the funny part is here we are now, 21 and a half years later, and that now 40 some odd year old man still has not finished up with Benton County over this DUI. Like, it still has what happens. This happens every year or so. He owed me like $1,600 in criminal restitution. Mm-hmm. The judge, it was kind of funny. The judge was like, Mr. Chris, it was like $1,800 in criminal restitution. And I was like, yes, Your Honor, there was a difference in what my car was worth. I just bought it and what they paid me. And the prosecuting attorney is like, yeah, the judge will never give you that. Like, he never will. That's civil stuff. And I go, and there's this couple things, and it broke a couple things in my car. And he goes, so you want $1,687? I was like, I'd either like that or 5 minutes alone with him, Your Honor.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you then, and you were not getting around like the young man that you were. You were in a lot of pain all the time.
All the time. And so then the judge was like, all right, $1,687.
So let me ask you this. How did that period of being in constant pain, how did that change? Did that change you in any way? Did that change your outlook on life, or did it have any kind of effect on you?
Yeah.
I know it did on me.
I mean, so there was a lot of stuff there. It definitely changed my life in a lot of ways. I found, honestly, at that point, the Navy kind of abandoned me. When you're a broken piece in the military machine, they just pull that piece out of the machine, put a new piece in the machine, and carry on.
Sad but true.
And I mean, it's a mission-driven organization. They have to, and I get that now, but it was hurtful. I mean, it hurt me bad. And so I found kind of the underbelly of the Navy where they didn't give a darn about me. They just wanted to fill a billet, and my wife and 2 very young children were not important. And so then I went, they reactivated my enlisted classification, sent me to an aircraft carrier. I'm like, guys, I'm not going to make it on an aircraft carrier. I'm in pain every day. I come to find out I actually had a displaced pelvis and 2 herniated discs in my back.
Is that all?
Is that all? My L4, L5, and L5S1 were herniated. So I was getting radiating pain down both legs, all the way to my toes, for those who have been familiar with that. Duodenal nerve pain into your groin and those things. It was just miserable. I remember months that the soap from the top part of me would wash my feet, and putting on socks was I have to take my medicine and wait an hour in the morning. And then if I psych myself up, I can get this done, and then I'll pay for it for the rest of the day. And that kind of pain, man, I would tell people all the time, you say a 0 to 10 pain scale, and everybody's 10 is different. Mm-hmm. All right. And I'm not going to judge somebody else's 10, but at the same time, I lived every day at like a 7 to 8 every day.
Yeah.
And it was debilitatingly miserable for about 2.5 years. And then I ended up having a couple of surgeries on my back. They got my hips they would displace all the time. And I was going in every day for an adjustment to get my hips to put back in. They said that I had the hips of an 80-year-old black man or a pregnant woman.
Interesting.
Delightful. Yeah. So they ended up sending me out in town because the Navy couldn't do a surgery that would fix me, to a guy that did fix me, Dr. Sam Maywood, out in La Mesa. And he did a great job. I'm literally the poster child for the surgery that I had, which is a nucleoplasty on each one, 2 different times. And I mean, miraculous. I live today on a 2. I can feel my back's not the same. It'll never be the same.
Right.
And as long as I don't do stupid things on it, it's pretty good now. And then every once in a while I'll do something and like I still have some bone spurs back there, and it'll grab a hold of me, and for a couple days I hobble around like, man, you dang kids, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
And remind me of how good I have it actually. So
back during that period, you and I had a mutual acquaintance that I want you to talk about briefly. Dr. Olden Pittman.
Yeah.
You called him Dad.
I did indeed. So, I feel like there are a few people in your life that really make a difference, and I was just screaming for, at that point, I needed somebody to love me. And I love my dad. I love him to pieces. He's an incredible man. Adopted me when I was 8 years old. Married my mom when I was 6, adopted me when I was 8. He's a very private guy, and he's immersed in his own stuff. We talk a couple times a year, whether we need to or not, see each other on family vacations and those things. And I just needed a mentor. I needed somebody who would invest in me. And we started going to a church in El Cajon, or in Santee. We were living in El Cajon, and he was an elder there and was teaching a parenting class. And I'll tell you why I started really what I gravitated to Doc Pittman for was that we went to a men's breakfast, and at this men's breakfast, I was just sitting talking to somebody. He was usually either speaking or hosting, and he was a big deal. And his son came in, and we were friends. Come over, shake my hand, give me a hug. And he goes, "Hey, John, have you seen my dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's out over, I think he's back over that way." And he literally beeline for his dad, went up, gave his dad a kiss on the cheek, gave him a hug.
Yeah.
"Hey, Dad, you doing okay? Do you need anything?" And his dad was like, "Man, I could really use a cup of coffee." And so he went, got a cup of coffee, brought it to his dad. And I was like, dude, if I could have a relationship like that with my adult son, I would love it. My son was a little bitty guy, like a toddler. And I was like, man, I want that. So we started going to his parenting class, and I just got closer and closer to him as I could. I wanted to be better as a Christian. And so he was also a chiropractor. So with me with a messed up back, right, I started seeing him as a chiropractor, and just asking him for help walking with the Lord and being a better husband and being a better father. And eventually, you said I called him Dad. He became such a big influence in my life that I was like, man, everybody calls you Dr. Pittman. I got to find a better title than that. Like, that's a great title. But
I just called him Doc.
Yeah, everybody did, right? And I was like, would you mind if I just called you Dad? And he laughed, and he said, I think that'd be very appropriate. Yeah. So, his boys, he has 3 boys, and I fit right in there. His boys were born in 75, 77, 78. I'm born in 76. They're born in, I think, November, December, and February. I'm born in January. So we joked that I was like his son, untimely born.
Right.
And he was the reason I went to seminary when I got out. He was the guy who was like, I think you really need to pursue that. You've got a gifting there. And convinced me to do it when I didn't really want to. Honestly, I didn't want to go back to school.
I remember him and I and my wife driving out to your seminary graduation from San Diego to Phoenix.
And back in that one day. And that was, meant more to me than you could possibly know. And talk about that all the time. I'm like, dude, like you got to understand. So this guy was crazy busy. And you guys obviously have a life. You have to take time off from work to go do this. And drove all the way out to see me graduate seminary. So, very influential. I mean, obviously he passed away a number of years ago. I think he passed away in 2009, I think.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. So 12 years old, but doing what he loved to do, playing racquetball with his grandson.
Yep.
And, and can't ask for better than that. And I still keep up with his oldest son, Oli. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Love Oli to death. And, these are the kind of legacies that you don't have to be related to somebody by blood to be family.
100%. I consider you family. I mean, I still, to young couples who have little kids, I'm still passing along Doc Pittman's parenting class advice to them, and it's gold.
100%, man. 100%.
I got 4 kids myself. None of them get off the phone without saying I love you, and that's gold. And they're all adults, and that's gold, and I love that. Absolutely golden. And honestly, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but you're literally my oldest friend. I mean, I just turned 50. Is that what you mean? Yes, that's exactly what I mean, is that you're an old man. No, I mean, we've been friends now for north of 20 years. Yeah. And that's rare as adults to find somebody to be friends with. I only became your friend because I could see into the future and knew you'd have an amazing blown up YouTube channel, and I just wanted to get on the ground floor. So yeah, an E5 sailor on crutches. A broken sailor. I had a feeling the kid's going places. It's going to happen. That guy's going to go somewhere. Let's talk about your first firearm. Oh. The first one that was actually yours. Okay, so my grandpa, when I was a little guy, for my 5th birthday, gave me a little pump action 22. Nice.
I still have that gun in pieces in my safe. I don't know. I eventually at some point need to take those few pieces that I have. I have the barrel, a couple of pieces of the action, and I think the stock sitting down in my safe. And I need to take that to a competent gunsmith and go, can you make a gun out of this at some point?
Yeah.
My grandpa Hodges gave me that gun for my 5th birthday. And okay, so statute of limitations has passed. They lived in the suburbs, and yet grandpa drew an X on a 4x4 post in their backyard, and I shot that post up with that 22 at 5-6 years old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're safe from prosecution at this point. As is your grandfather.
Well, he's dead, so go get him, guys.
How cool did you feel pumping that thing and blazing off rounds though as a little kid?
Oh man, I loved it, and grandpa would occasionally take me hunting as a little guy, and that was everything to me. I felt so mature that I was trusted with a gun, and that I was always very careful. Grandpa was big on the rules of safe firearms handling. He was a Marine, and so, Colonel Cooper's 4 rules are how we live life. Yeah. You well understand.
You will not laugh. You will not cry.
That's right. I will teach you. And so we were big on that, but to be trusted with that, anytime you want to go shoot, go ahead, and he called me JP. Go ahead, JP, anything you want to do. Nobody else is allowed to call me JP, but he did. And so, yeah, man, and that was my very first gun. I still have it. It was kept in my parents' house for a number of years. I don't know what condition the rifling's in or anything. Like I said, it's sitting in pieces right now.
If you have to, just get it polished up and frame it or something. I mean,
right?
Yeah. So what is your everyday carry in 2021?
2021, I am carrying an HK P30 Wonder Blaster. It is a custom gun, customized by Robar, who's since gone out of business. So you can't, there's no ASP Robar gun.
Right.
It started life as a P30 Lem, and then went and got a red dot put on it, and then Robar full customized, full NP3 internals, full texture job, has a trigger put in it by Lazy Wolf Guns, Rick Holm. And it's delightful. It's a cheater gun. I love that pistol to death. It runs great. Of course, you can't get away without saying I'm a brand ambassador for Heckler & Koch. So obviously there's maybe a little bit of bias there. But I started carrying a VP9 in, I think, 2015.
I got news for you. When I'm at the range and my VP9 comes out, nobody's like, "No, that's a piece of junk." They're usually like, "Wow, what is that?" Yeah.
Kraut Space Magic. Strudel shooter.
Murder plastic. Yeah. Very good. So let me ask you this. What gave you the idea for Active Self-Protection? Because it wasn't originally a YouTube channel.
No. It's at its core, the business as it began was me doing handgun instruction. I got into concealed carry in 2006. I got my CCW permit in 2006 because I was running a video game store, and the store that I was running, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 came out, and I got, not me, but several of my friends running similar stores in our valley got mugged. And were victims of armed robberies because they were going on the secondary market for a ton of money. So this is before social media was quite so big, but you could sell stuff on eBay and Craigslist and those things.
Right.
So I was like, nah, fam, not me. So I went and got my CCW permit, bought the wrong gun, put the wrong ammo in it, put it in the wrong holster, put it on my hip.
Almost everyone does.
Right, like everybody does. But then at the same time, I started studying martial arts. My son got me into that. And so after a while, I go, man, I got to start training. Because if I'm going to carry this gun, I better be good with it. And that gets expensive in a hurry. And so I started the company going, man, at least I could write this stuff off if I'm teaching.
Right.
So I'm a teacher at my core, and that's my core competency is teaching. So I started the company, just went and got my NRA certs and filed the LLC just so then that way it was official. And that's why Active Self-Protection started, was just for me to teach a few NRA classes, a few CCW handgun classes to pay for my gun habit.
Nice. And then what made you decide to branch out into YouTube?
Well, so it's an interesting story that, 2013 really is when that really started. So I was pastoring a church and was getting into self-defense too, and training and carrying, and started teaching some classes in handguns on the side, just, part-time. And some blue-haired ladies at church, they just don't like it that their pastor would be into guns. That's offensive to some. Mm-hmm. Now, it was a Southern Baptist church. You kind of think, most Southern Baptist churches, they'd be like, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Yeah, guns are good. Yeah. Very long dresses.
Very long dresses, handmade. But no, it wasn't an independent Baptist. It's, Southern. But, So I got a little pushback for sharing gun stuff on my Facebook in 2013. And so I started a page for the company just to get the blue-haired ladies off my back. And so I started putting stuff over there. We actually started making memes, like high-quality defensive memes.
You were early in the meme game, huh?
Yeah, we were early in the meme game because Facebook at the time in like 13 was like all about the memes. Yeah. Still all about the memes. But and then they started offering video content in 2014. And they wanted to start competing in that. So somebody sent me a video of a real-life knife attack. It was a dude shanking his baby mama. And if you go on the ASP Facebook page and you scroll all the way to the bottom of the videos tab, there's about 500 of them there. It will take you a while. You'll find that video there. I put it up there, and it went kind of viral. By viral at the time, I'm talking maybe 80,000 views.
You voiced it over?
No. All I did was put it up and go, holy crap. This was a big deal. Watch this. Because what I did was I took that on my BlackBerry to my martial arts teacher.
Your BlackBerry.
On my BlackBerry.
It's the kids these days.
Kids these days. And your punk rock music and your long hair. Yeah. My BlackBerry Storm, one of the first touchscreen smartphones. And I showed it to Professor Lawrence Robinson, now Master Lawrence Robinson, my teacher. And I was like, Professor, I don't know how to defend myself against this kind of attack. And I've been studying martial arts for like 6-7 years. And he was like, well, hey man, let's workshop it tonight in class. And I was like, okay, cool. And we did, and it was super successful. And I felt so much better at the end. And okay, I feel like I can do something. And that was like, oh wow, we could use this real life video, and it made us better on the mats. Right. And so then I started, people send me a couple, and I would do that. We would go and workshop them in class, and then I'd go write up, this is what we workshopped in class, think about these things, and then typed it in the description. So then somebody sent me a video that was like 5 minutes long. Okay. But the first 4.5 minutes of it were boring. There were nothing. And then 30 seconds of action. And I had a editing program on my laptop, but I didn't know how to use it.
Okay.
And so to the YouTubes, and in the basic tutorial, I was like, hey, teach me how to use this software. It was Adobe Premiere. And one of the things that they gave me on there was, okay, so here's a basic overview of how to work it. And the thing that it said was, here's how you can record a voiceover in the middle of that. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, instead of typing all this in the description, I could just say it. And if I said it, maybe I could put some like arrows and circles and stuff. I could be like the John Madden of on-camera violence.
I like it.
And so I tried it, and it worked. And that was like October of 2014. I put the first one of those on Facebook, and people really liked that. That was like, cool. Wow. All right. So it was Facebook. That was where my audience was, right? I think we had, 50,000 people at the time on Facebook or something. And so it grew, the Facebook audience grew, and I had a YouTube channel. I had the Active Self-Protection YouTube channel, started it in 13, just to put a placeholder so that nobody else could squat on my business name.
Right.
And then I'd throw in a couple of videos, but they were like, if you go back to the oldest videos on the main channel, on the main YouTube channel, they're actually me out on the range. And then like April of 2016, YouTube was like, hey, if you want, you can monetize your channel. You've met the requirements for monetization. And I was like, oh, what?
Yes, please.
Well, I was like, it's like walking down the street and finding quarters.
Yeah.
Why would you say no to that? Right. So I did. And I had, at the time, we'd made about 500 videos for the Facebook page. We'd made quite a few of them in those intervening 18 months. Or maybe not 500, but maybe, 300-400. And I was like, well, why don't we just take some of these old ones I've already made, and the audience on Facebook's already seen them. Let's put them, I'll just upload them to the YouTube channel, see what it does. And that was the magic moment. The YouTube channel, I was like, oh, I should have been doing this to YouTube the whole dang time.
Probably the only I told you so. I don't like saying I told you so. But
you love saying I told you so with this.
My favorite I told you so of all time is to tell John I told you this was going to blow up.
Yeah.
It's blown up.
Yeah, you did.
So real quick, I want to talk about the comments section. Now, generally speaking, I used to really get bugged by people just being mean-spirited or whatever. I let it bother me. And in retrospect, I let it bother me entirely too much. Because there's just mean-spirited people. And when they can be anonymous, they say mean-spirited things to perfect strangers for no reason.
What?
Yeah. And I think for the first time after having been on one of the main channel videos now and looking at the comment section, I see this huge disconnect where you and I both said, just for example, the first video that I was in, it was a bad shoot. It was a bad shoot by a gnat's whisker, but it was a bad shoot.
It was.
Of a police officer shooting a guy who was armed, but when the shot broke, he didn't have his hands on a weapon and his hands up, invisible. Right. And you and I both, we didn't make any excuses for him. We said, this is what we think happened, basically, pretty dry-eyed opinion. And then we both proceeded to say, yeah, this was not a good shoot. And so the video publishes, and lo and behold, every other comment or more, 70% are, I can't believe you think this is a good shoot. And it was the first time, I think, because I was invested in this video, that I said to myself, what? Wait, what? We clearly said this was a bad shoot, yet it didn't let it bother me this time. And then the rest of the comments about how I'm a cardboard cutout and a ninja master and all that sort of thing were interesting. But I just don't know how. Did it bother you at the start, these sort of comments, or did it ever bother you? I know it doesn't now.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can. Listen, right now, as of today, the main channel has just over like 2.4 million subscribers. In any community of 2.4 million, you are going to get a number of yahoos, and we don't mind swinging the band hammer with gleeful abandon. If you are a mean, nasty, obnoxious, racist so-and-so, you gone. Go take that trash elsewhere. But at the same time, if you're going to have a presence on social media, you've got to have the skin of a rhinoceros. You just have to. And actually, it goes back to my seminary days. So that was something that was taught to me by the president of the seminary I attended, Daryl Del Husse. And Dr. D said, he goes, man, if you're going to be a pastor, you got to have the mind of a scholar, you got to have the heart of a shepherd, and you got to have the skin of a rhinoceros. And so I really learned that in the ministry, in fact, because people will say the most hateful, obnoxious, mean-spirited things
untrue
about their pastor.
Yeah.
That you can imagine. And people take things ridiculously personally that aren't personal. And people are also wonderful and generous and kind and good.
Yeah.
And so I learned that there. And so, you just recognize that, I have learned, obviously, they say the Babe Ruth saying, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats.
Yep.
And I love what... Teddy Roosevelt, the quote from Teddy Roosevelt about it's not the critic who counts, it's the man who's down on the field. Brene Brown has a great saying about this. Mm-hmm. If you're not down in the arena getting your ass kicked, I do not care about your opinion. If you want to sit in the stands and watch, go ahead. But if you're not down in the arena battling it out, I don't care about what you think.
I had to resist the urge to tell one guy, listen, I've been called fat by the best, okay? You got to come with something a little better than fat. I know I'm fat. I don't need you to point it out to me.
I got to be honest with you, man. I have such respect for women in the firearms industry who have a social media presence. Because, people call me fat, stupid, wrong, dumb, unqualified. Like, I have no experience, which cracks me up because I'm like, I actually have more private citizen experience carrying a firearm than like a guy who's a beat cop for 25 years doesn't know how to carry a gun as a private citizen, as a concealed carrier. He doesn't have experience in that realm. He has a lot of experience carrying a gun as a cop.
Something I'm learning now that I've retired is I don't know what to do. I don't have my ID yet. I don't know what to do with myself.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, that's got to be in one of the videos, by the way. I can speak from experience that you've never made anything up. I mean, I know that for a fact, because if you ever had a question, if you ever didn't know a thing, you're narrating a video about a law enforcement encounter, you'd call me, you'd call one of your cop buddies,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd call 2 or 3 people to make sure the information you're getting was correct before you said anything on a video. So at any rate.
So I get all that, but I don't get the additional heat that women get out there.
Oh, no.
And so I listen, I guess if I had one admonition to everybody is don't be a jerk online. Like, it's so easy and flippant to just be nasty to somebody, but instead choose to be kind. The world's better if you do.
One of my favorite partners when I was a Fed was a probably 5'2", 120-pound female agent. And I watched her walk into a house after a search warrant with a bunch of gangbangers and whip those guys into shape in about 3 seconds. And everybody
Tune them right up.
Everybody was sitting on the couch with their hands, in their lap. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am. I've worked with some phenomenal females over the year. And now that I'm in the private sector, I'm meeting all sorts of awesome female firearms instructors and just great people. And again, I can't put myself in anybody else's position, but I can imagine it's tough to be a female in the industry and get patted on the head and called little lady and condescended
comments
to.
about your body.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, crazy stuff. Listen, it was about a year ago, I think, and I brought you the idea of a podcast, and you were like, I don't know, let me think about it.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Did you think we'd be sitting here a year later and you're in the studio with 2 microphones doing a podcast?
I will say, if you'd said to me a year ago, hey, John, we want you to have a podcast, I was like, dude, I'm already overworked. I already have so much on my plate. I know people think, well, gosh, John only works 8 minutes a day. He puts up a video and it's like 8 minutes. It doesn't take any work. It actually takes me hours of research. You've done some badge cams with me now, and so they take time. And the business, I probably work, 60, 70 hours a week, all things considered. But it's not work. It's what I love to do, and so it's great. And so the thought of, oh man, adding something else, it was not possible. So now it's one of the reasons that I was so glad you decided to retire, because you were like, dude, I want to do the ASP podcast. And I was like, now we're talking. So I don't know if I'd have said that I would have thought we would have done it, but I'm super glad we're here.
As an aside, if you're listening to this and you've been in a self-defense encounter, especially if it's on video and we can verify it, we would love to talk to you and have you on the podcast. So keep that in mind. My email address is mike@activeselfprotection.com. mike@activeselfprotection.com. Shoot me an email, and I will definitely reach out to you. I think we have 4 guests lined up already. I'm so excited about what's going to happen here.
And that's what we're going to focus on.
Yeah,
right?
So good.
That's what I'm really excited about. Is I think the other part of a podcast for me was, and no disparity to anybody, okay. But the thought of us going, oh, okay, I can interview other defensive trainers because I know them all about what the best practices in the industry are. There's 10 of those already being done.
Yeah.
Or we can talk about what the best techniques are to improve your handgun shooting, or your, South American floor karate or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's already being done. But the idea of, well, let's do long form with people who have been in real gunfights and real defensive encounters, some cops, some private citizens, and see what it was like before, during, and after. That's not being done.
No, and I cannot express to you in words how excited I am about the guests we already have lined up and what's going to come. It's very, very exciting. What are your goals for active self-protection moving forward?
I am so grateful to have this tiger by the tail with active self-protection. It never was supposed to be what it is. I never had any grand plan of like, oh, look, I'm going to be a social media celebrity. I'm going to take over the world and have millions of followers. That's never been a plan. My goal has always been, from the beginning, just to help people as best I can to protect themselves and their families. So what's the plan with ASP? To keep doing that in every way that we can, to grow the podcast, not because I want to have more people around, but because that's another way we can help people. A lot of people take in this kind of content that they don't in a lot of other ways. So if we can help people who are podcast listeners to better defend themselves, let's do that. We're really working hard to invest in our instructor certification and the instructor program, not to make little clones of me, but to make better teachers of handgun shooters. And I think we're doing
I'm in that class right now.
You're in cohort 3, and I'm super excited to bring my background in education into the firearms world and to release some of that stuff into the firearms world in a good way. And some others have done that a little bit before, but I think we're going to go about it in a unique way. And so I'm super excited about that. There are no plans to stop anything that we're doing. So the main channel is a juggernaut. It's going to keep on going. Extra, the second channel on YouTube, I'm so excited about. I actually love Active Self-Protection Extra. It is my passion project. It's what I love to do all the time. And, the funny part is I always thought of it, and I've always it's 4.5 years old now, as my kind of play. It's my play channel. It's whatever. But that channel's got 170,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a channel with 170,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, who would, right? Who would mind it?
But I mean, what are we doing on that channel? You're teaching for the most part. It's teaching. It's what you
8
love
lessons
to do.
a week,
so
right?
It makes sense.
Yeah, and so we could see things like, I hesitate to lay some things out there, but we're talking about maybe doing some long form video content for streaming services. So maybe you could see something on one of the streaming platforms that is Active Self-Protection branded. That would be probably more like similar to what you see on the main channel, except for if we get to do that, I'm going to expand that to like a number of experts who come in and talk about a particular issue, and we might arrange things thematically, like, we might have a whole season of surviving an armed robbery, or the trends that we see right now in Houston, Texas, or things like that. We're still in the early stages of that, but that's getting kind of felt out a little bit to see what that would look like. That's super exciting. I think that the best of that, you're going to see us. We built this huge brand that is, I think, has a place in the industry and a place in the self-defense community that helps. We do Second Amendment advocacy very differently than anybody else I know, in that we don't go, we don't beat the drum and say,
my rights.
Instead, we go, here's the value of good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people defending themselves with firearms. And this is why we want people to be able to have them. Good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people. I think you'll see some more of that, and more ways that we can reach kind of beyond our borders a little bit, and see the Second Amendment as a civil right rather than as a political right. And so we're gonna push into that a little bit. I think, oh boy, man, I'm trying to push a few other people who are good, incredible instructors forward. So that's why you're seeing guys like Brian Hill on the Extra channel every week. And Brian's an incredible instructor. Yeah. And so that's when I begged him.
He makes me want to quit constructing when I watch him instruct. That's how
so
good he is.
And so when I go, hey, Brian, would you come on the Extra channel and instruct there on a regular basis, and I'll pay you to do that. And why you see Neil, why you see you coming on badge cams.
Sammy Middlebrook.
Yeah, Samuel Middlebrook on there too, and he's incredible. Stephanie, is our CEO, is going to do some main channel narrations with me here over the next few weeks to kind of get in front there. So
don't forget our resident range monkey.
Yes, absolutely, Natalie the range monkey. At some point you could see Natalie have her own channel as the range monkey. And so my point there is to say, we've worked hard to build this, but I don't want it to be around my personality. I want it to be around the principles of evidence-based self-defense. And as we achieve that, bringing the voices, the high-quality voices who are about evidence-based self-defense into that, and making it more of a team effort, so that I can sip my ties in the Bahamas a little bit occasionally, would be amazing.
Talk to me real quick about the national conference coming up. Are there still slots available?
Oh yeah, there's definitely places. We would love to have more people come and train with us. There's another thing that we want to grow as a company, is that probably one of the biggest, most important things to me is our philanthropic efforts. We want to be a force for good in our world. So probably the two big ones that we support every year is we support SWAT Ministries that rescues underage girls from sex slavery all over the world.
Very important work. Ask me how I know.
Yeah, right. As a guy who dealt with this kind of stuff in law enforcement for a long time, we could talk about the evils of sex slavery and how prevalent it is in the United States for hours. But then the second one that we support is the Flint Hills Foster Teen Camp in Manhattan, Kansas, at Living Water Ranch. Mike and Lisa Irvin have been running that for some time. And they take abused and abandoned foster teens and give them hope. They bring them to summer camp. They do not get paid a penny for any of it. The state doesn't pay them. These foster parents can't afford it or won't, even if they could. And these kids are some of the worst of the worst. Some of the ones who've been abused the worst, and especially as a teen in foster camp and foster care, so super hard. About 40% of those kids, if they get to their 18th birthday in foster care, they're homeless on their 18th birthday.
Right, yeah.
Their rates of incarceration and substance abuse are astronomical. And so to intervene there earlier and younger as teens, and to give them hope, a future, a self-conception that they can make it through this, and that they're overcomers and that they're not victims, that's what they do. And so all that to say is the background. We do the national conference. It's 3 days of training. It's an incredible conference style 3 days of training. So 3 or 4 live fire ranges going at the same time in 2 and 4 hour blocks. So you take little bits of different national level instructors. So you might get 2 hours or 4 hours with AJ Zito learning how to run a red dot, or you might get 4 hours with Adam Winch in handgun speed. And Adam just won a turbo pin from Gabe White. Might know a little bit about shooting a defensive handgun fast.
Just a skosh.
Just a smidge. You might get 2 hours or 4 hours of Samuel Middlebrook's handgun experience. That dude teaches people how to be present in the art of shooting a gun like nobody I've ever seen. Or you get Neil Widener teaching you the Secret to a Sub-Second Draw, and many others. So that's just a small inkling. At this year's conference, I'm going to be teaching a block on defensive shotgun use for private citizens. And
I love the 12 gauge.
I am preaching the gospel of the gauge this year. And I think that some people wrongly think that the 12 gauge is an antiquated tool, but it is an absolutely incredible tool for home defense.
The agency that I just retired from just got rid of all of their 870s for
Please
reasons unknown.
send them to me.
I know.
We shall buy them at rock bottom prices.
The one firearm consistent for me throughout my 25 years with the feds was an 870.
Yep.
Police
870 Police Magnum, rock and roll, baby.
Unbelievable.
So then we also have classroom classes, at least 3 going on each time. We'll do things in there, everything from Terry Johnson from Firearms Legal Protection doing a legal update to last year, John and Sarah Hauptman did a concealment tune-up from Filster, who's one of our sponsors, and all kinds of classes. We had trauma medical. We had a 4-hour trauma medical block in there, and many, many more. Chuck Haggard teaching his OC spray class, which is unbelievable. I think Chuck is also going to teach his backup gun or his small pistol, which is pretty cool. So there's just so much good that goes on there. 3 full days of great training. You know me, I'm a Jesus guy. So if anybody who wants to, we do Bible study in the morning and prayer. We have a worship service Saturday night. If anybody wants to participate.
I heard your worship leader's pretty good too.
Yeah, he's pretty legit.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, it's Mike's son Edward who leads worship and does a freaking phenomenal job of it. And the coolest part to me is that not one penny of it comes to active self-protection. So the conference for the weekend is $600, and so that's $200 a day for national level training, which is pretty cheap.
That's extremely cheap.
And the way that you give that is it doesn't cost you to come to the conference. You make a donation that pays for a teen to go to foster camp for a week. So it costs them $600 for a week to send a kid to the foster camp. So you pay for a child to have a hope in a future, and you get to come to the camp,
which is priceless. Just for comparison, so roughly $200 a day for this conference with all these A-list instructors teaching you really cool stuff.
Yep.
Plus,
Brian Hill will be there teaching.
But food, I assume, is included.
Well, so we'll set out breakfast, like a continental breakfast for everybody. This last year worked really well. We had food trucks out for lunch, and then kind of everybody on their own for dinner. And because we got big enough that we outgrew the kitchen facilities, quite frankly. So we have a light breakfast out for everybody, and then food trucks available for lunch.
So $200 a day. Can you tell me roughly, just here in the Phoenix area, for a professional one-on-one firearms instruction for an hour, what would that cost you?
It depends on who you're going to work with. I mean, I see guys here in the Valley that are as little as $50 an hour for an hour of training. And
so in 4 hours, you're up to $200.
Yeah, you're up to $200. Yeah. I will tell you right now, my going rate for private instruction is $200 an hour.
Yeah.
So, and when we do ASP branded classes around the nation, it's between $250 and $300 a day as the going rate. And the national level guys are that's about the going rate in order to pay your bills and to make it go. So $250 at the low end, $300, $350 at the high end. So you get less than that, and you get incredible instruction by really great folks. I know Shelly Hill's coming and teaching her image-based decision drills.
Awesome.
I mean, just incredible stuff.
So will we hear your voice on the podcast every time, sometimes? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that I want to be invested as well. This isn't something that I'm just sending off to do its thing, right? I think that the cool part is you and I have been friends for so long, and you've been around the culture of active self-protection for so long that you know my heart. And so I'm excited for more voices to be heard there. I think that people hear me a lot. And so I'll be around, and I want to co-host with you whenever we can. I think that having Stephanie Widener in here as well, she brings such a unique voice and such an incredible...
She's the best at everything. She's awesome.
And people like Neil Widener, our chief marketing officer, our director of training.
He's the second best at everything.
It's second best, right after Stephanie. Having Samuel on, having somebody come and co-host sometimes like Soleil Roche, who is leading the charge on the Second Amendment in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And... so
she's also in my
in your cohort,
class,
yeah, man, and just incredible. So Soleil has had a couple of defensive encounters involving OC spray, and I mean, serious stuff.
She could actually be a guest.
I think we should have her on as a guest. And so those voices will be a part of it too. So I'll be around for sure. You probably won't hear me every episode. You probably hear me more in the beginning as we get going, just because I want to kind of hear what's going on.
Right. Last question. One of our listeners, one of our viewers, finds his or herself in a situation where they have to defend their lives or the lives of their family.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about instructing people before and how we've had the honor of having someone call us up or email us or text us and say, hey, man, I heard your voice in my head when this was going down.
Crazy.
And it saved me. And that feeling is right up to like when a kid's being born. That's how what an honor that feeling is. What do you want our listeners, what do you want our viewers to hear you saying in their head at that moment?
Well, so first of all, I want to say that, and I do get those emails. I probably get them at least once a month, if not once a week. Somebody, John, you saved my life. My first reply back is, I absolutely did not.
Right.
You saved your life.
Yeah.
You own your agency, man. Good job, great work. And I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of that and helped somebody in some way. So if I had one thing, they go, what do you want me to hear? If, obviously it depends on where we are in the encounter, right? I want to whack people over the head all the time and say, pay attention, because hopefully there's a decent shot that if you were paying better attention, you might not have gotten chosen to begin with. But if you're in that spot already, calm is a superpower.
Yeah.
Stay busy. Do work. Nobody's coming to save you. Go do work. And hopefully your skills are up to the task.
John, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to host this podcast. I want to thank you for coming on your show.
You know what I'm excited about, Mike? I'm going to tell you what I want everybody to catch here is that Mike is, this is his first one, and he's, interviewing the head honcho of the whole enterprise and all that stuff. But you watch as you get to know Mike Williver, and he gets to let his goofy flag fly a little bit and gets to have the fun. I think you guys are going to fall in love with him. So I'm excited for you to be the host, Mike.
John, thanks so much. Hey there, self-defenders. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a very good chance you watch active self-protection videos on YouTube. And if you have, you've seen numerous instances where regular people who are self-defenders are called upon to use a firearm to defend themselves and their families. And you're probably wondering what happens in the aftermath. Well, I'll tell you one thing you're going to want in the aftermath is firearms legal protection. They're there so you win the fight after the fight and you're able to carry on with your life. It is the only defensive legal membership company that Active Self-Protection recommends. They're committed to helping train and educate the self-defense community. Please thank them for their support and consider them for your needs. Check them out at get-asp.com/FLP. Get-asp.com/FLP.